A cold spring breeze rippled through the plastic sheeting that protected the most delicate trees in Yukimori's bonsai nursery. Though dawn still lurked beneath the eastern hills, Yuki had been awake for hours, misting the foliage and checking the moisture of the akadama soil grains one by one, as though the miniature pines and maples were infants who required soothing. In 4 days, Shizuhama would host its annual cherry blossom fair, and Yuki's nursery, Sanctuary of Small Spirits, was expected to display 60 specimens. It should have been a season of gentle anticipation, but something gritty snagged on her thoughts. Her friendly rival, Tatsuo Ishikawa, had vanished the night before. Their banter across market stalls, their good-natured wagers about whose juniper would win the silver ribbon, everything had evaporated into a raw silence. When police came, they found Tatsuo's van abandoned beside the riverbank, engine still warm. Rumors bloomed faster than the sakura buds. Some whispered that loan sharks had dragged Tatsuo away. Others said the jealous ex-husband of a woman whom Tatsuo secretly courted had taken revenge. What unsettled Yuki most, however, was the single artifact police recovered from inside the van: an Edo period leather scroll case sealed with faded red lacquer. According to Officer Sakamoto, Tatsuo had been carrying it since earlier that afternoon, waving it about like a prized fish, and telling anyone who listened that it contained a samurai's diary, linking Shizuhama's founding to an illustrious clan of gardeners. Yuki remembered the shine in his eyes when he stopped by her greenhouse after closing time. "Mori-san, I've discovered a story that will eclipse our bonsai," he declared, patting the scroll case with mock secrecy. "Make sure you come to the fair early. There will be a surprise." She teased him for selling history instead of hemlocks. He laughed, they bowed, and she shut the gate behind him. That had been the last she saw of Tatsuo. While townspeople speculated, Yuki found herself drawn to the odd detail the police overlooked. The scroll case's crimson seal, a stylized branch ending in 3 ascending circles, matched the Mon family crest once used by Kanbei Mori, a 17th century retainer to the Lord of Tottori Castle. Yuki had recognized it at once, for the crest appeared on an antique carving that crowned her nursery's front gate. Legend insisted that Kanbei had retired to Shizuhama after a vicious border skirmish, devoting his sword hand to pruning miniature trees so perfect they could calm the angry spirits of war. Why would Tatsuo possess a relic bearing the Mori crest? And why choose to show it off to her, of all people, hours before his disappearance? Questions tangled like exposed roots, refusing to be cut away. After business closed that night, Yuki locked the greenhouse, folded a wool shawl around her shoulders, and crossed town toward Tatsuo's garden shop, a modest wooden structure wedged between a T-bar and the railway embankment. Yellow police tape fluttered across the entrance, yet no officer remained at this late hour. She ducked beneath it, guided by the instinct that sometimes led her to find the exact branch that needed trimming. Inside smelled of cedar mulch and spilled fertilizer. The distant street lamp cast wavering orange bars through the front window. Tatehaku Nursery's sales floor was an orderly chaos: rakes, misters, shari carving tools hanging from hooks, trays of seedlings arranged by species. But footprints, glossy from wet soil, tracked across the tatami toward a back office. Yuki's pulse skipped. She followed them into the cramped room, where a single drawer of the filing cabinet stood open. Folders had been rifled. One lay face down on the floor. She stooped, brushed potting mix off the cover, and read the label. "Kanbei Diary Research." "Tatsuo, you restless crow," she thought. "You never mentioned research." The folder contained photocopies of parchment leaves covered in brush ink kanji, each page stamped again with the Mori crest. Between sheets lay Tatsuo's own notes, scribbled in margin. From Mountain Temple Archives, mentions secret garden, describes miniature cherry trees bred for loyalty tests. Page 17. Phrase flowers as oath. A photocopy of an illustration stopped Yuki cold. It depicted two men kneeling over a bonsai cherry in full bloom. One held a tiny sword, the other a pruning shear. Below, in thick strokes, the calligrapher had added, "To sever one's shame is to prune living wood. The cut reveals the inner grain." Wind rattled the window pane, startling her from the trance. Tucking the documents into her satchel, Yuki left before a patrol could discover her trespassing. Back at her own nursery, she spread the pages on the potting bench beneath a hanging lamp. She read until birds chorused the coming sun, piecing together a story that tightened her chest with each translated passage. According to Kanbei's diary, Lord Imagawa once demanded absolute loyalty from his retainers. To test them, he bred a line of dwarf cherry trees whose buds opened only under a concoction of salt, rice vinegar, and blood, usually drawn from the retainer himself. Those whose blossoms failed to unfurl were deemed traitors and disposed of. Kanbai wrote of smuggling one such bonsai out of the castle on the night he deserted the clan, terrified by the grotesque ritual. He intended to hide it where peaceful minds shelter the wounded root. Yuki stared at the final entry. In a shaky hand, Kanbei had drawn a rough map of Shizuhama's coastline, marking an inlet with the Mori crest. Beneath, he penned a postscript. "Future gardener, bury shame here, water with patience, and the tree will carry our redemption." No subsequent pages followed. Though the tale might be mere myth, Yuki's intuition insisted it mattered. Perhaps Tatsuo had believed so too, and someone worried he would announce it publicly. She needed guidance, and there was only one elder in Shizuhama with knowledge deep enough to confirm or dismiss the diary's claims. Sister Amateru of the Silver Lantern Temple, a Buddhist nun whose moss garden had won national design awards. After closing the nursery at noon, Yuki bicycled the ragged path up Plum Blossom Hill to the temple gate. The sweet frankincense of burning cedar filled the courtyard. Sister Amateru, stooped yet sharp, pruned a bed of mukdenia with scissors that flashed in the sun. Her ivory eyebrows rose when Yuki explained her errand and laid the photocopies on a bamboo bench. The nun traced one finger across the 17th century cursive, lips moving in silent translation. "These characters are authentic," she pronounced at last. "But authenticity of ink does not guarantee authenticity of story. Why come to me, child?" "Because Tatsuo is missing," Yuki said. "And the police think he simply ran. I believe someone feared what he would reveal. If the cursed bonsai still exists, somewhere near the inlet, perhaps he found it. I must keep looking." Sister Amateru studied her, midnight eyes patient, then beckoned her closer. "Our town loves festivals and legends, yet legends can cut the hands that nurture them. If you insist on pursuing ghosts, allow me to arm you with clarity." She produced a thin copper key from her sleeve. "Years ago, a fisherman unearthed a lacquer box snagged in his net. He donated it to us, thinking it contained relics. I stored it in the archive. The crest you described decorates its lid. I could never open it. Lock too complex? Perhaps your stubborn heart is the missing tool." The temple archive was a stone annex smelling of dust and camphor oil. With trembling fingers, Yuki slid the key into the ornate lock of a chest no bigger than a soup bowl. Tumblers clicked, hinges squeaked, and inside rested a scroll smaller than her palm, bound by twine. She unfurled it carefully. The parchment held only a sketch, an overhead view of Shizuhama's fairground, its stalls drawn as little rectangles, pathways forming a spiral. At the spiral's center was the outline of a bonsai stand labeled Blood Cherry. Time had browned the ink, yet a newer mark had been added in ballpoint pen, Tatsuo's handwriting, circling the same stall and writing the word tomorrow. He must have opened the chest days ago, perhaps with lock-picking tools or sheer luck, and planned to unveil the infamous tree at the Cherry Blossom Fair's opening ceremony. Whoever abducted him likely wanted both diary and tree hidden. With Sister Amateru's blessing, Yuki descended the hill, the map engraved in her mind. She phoned Officer Sakamoto, but he dismissed the lead as conjecture, so she decided to act alone. The fairgrounds, still under construction for the upcoming festival, lay along the river's bend, where the inlet Kanbei sketched merged with the larger current. She arrived at dusk, slipping past labourers stacking paper lanterns. At the centre of the half-built spiral of stalls stood a canopy bearing a sign, reserved Tatehaku Nursery. No trees underneath, only an empty tatami mat and 2 packing crates. The crates were padlocked, but the cheap metal gave way when Yuki leveraged a screwdriver from a nearby toolbox. Inside the first crate lay bags of lime soil and a shallow antique pot cushioned in straw. The pot's rim gleamed black enamel. Its base bore the Mori crest. The second crate contained a gnarled cherry bonsai no taller than Yuki's forearm. Its bark was silvered with age, yet no buds appeared on the bare branches. At its foot rested a sealed vial of dark liquid, labelled simply solution. Yuki's stomach clenched. Blood and vinegar, she wondered. A twig snapped behind her. She pivoted, flashlight beam illuminating 2 silhouettes, a broad-shouldered man in construction overalls and a leaner figure with a scar across his cheek. Both carried pocket knives. The large man spoke first, voice rough. "Step away from the tree, Mori-san. City property, held for safekeeping." "The city doesn't threaten citizens with knives," Yuki replied. "We're contractors," the scarred man said, smirking, "specializing in removal." He flicked the blade open. Yuki's options pruned themselves. She set the flashlight on the tatami to free her hands, reigniting the calm she practiced while wiring fragile branches. "You work for whoever wants this bonsai buried again." "Smart woman," the large man said, advancing. "Tatsuo talked too much. You will remain silent." He lunged to grab her wrist. Yuki stepped sidewise, twisting his thumb toward the back of his hand, the way bonsai masters rotate stubborn twigs. Pain jerked him downward. She snatched the vial from the crate and smashed it on the tatami. Vinegar stung the air. Droplets spattered their boots. The scarred accomplice cursed and rushed forward, knife raised. Yuki grabbed the shallow pot and swung. Ceramic cracked against his forearm. The blade flew clattering onto gravel. He yelped, but before Yuki could retreat, the large thug tackled her. They fell against the crate, wood splintered. She glimpsed the bonsai teetering, roots exposed. Instinct trumped fear. She caught the tree with both hands, cradling trunk and soil like an infant, rolling to protect it as the man's fist grazed her temple. Lanterns strung along the fairground flickered on, triggered by night sensors. Startled voices shouted from afar, maintenance workers returning. The thugs exchanged a glance, then bolted into the shadows, leaving threats hanging like ghost branches. Yuki stood trembling but intact, the ancient blood cherry secure in her grip. Police arrived within minutes. This time, Officer Sakamoto listened. Yuki recounted events while paramedics checked her bruises. As she spoke, she realized how fragile her evidence sounded. A centuries-old diary, a legendary test of loyalty, hired goons. Yet the broken vial, smashed locks, and eyewitness workers corroborated an attempted theft. Sakamoto ordered the bonsai transported to the police station for forensic analysis and sent officers to hunt the assailants. "Where is Tatsuo?" Yuki pressed. Sakamoto sighed. "We found no trace since last night, but your attackers might lead us to him. Meanwhile, we'll guard the tree." Yuki's relief soured. Guarding the tree wasn't enough. If Tatsuo remained captive, he could be anywhere. She lingered while officers catalogued evidence. During the process, she overheard a technician remark that no fingerprints adorned the blood cherry pot except one set, likely Tatsuo's, lifted from a tiny brass plaque screwed to the underside. Curiosity prickled. When no one watched, Yuki crouched, peering beneath the pot. The plaque bore an engraving. "To sever shame, twist." She tugged gently. The plaque rotated, unscrewing like a lid to reveal a hollow. Within lay a folded slip of paper. Heart battering her ribs, Yuki palmed the note and stepped into the station restroom. She unfolded it carefully. Tatsuo's handwriting again. "If you read this, I'm alive. They hold me at Kiji Packing Warehouse near docks. They want me to destroy the tree at midnight after fair opens, erasing evidence. Please save the blood cherry, proof of Kanbei's warning. And if possible, me. Trust only Mori-san." T. Kiji Warehouse stood 2 kilometers downriver. Midnight hovered less than 2 hours away. She might inform Sakamoto, but earlier skepticism suggested bureaucratic delays could cost Tatsuo his life. She decided on direct action, though not alone. Dialing Sister Amateru, she requested assistance. 20 minutes later, Yuki met the nun behind the temple's microbus. Sister Amateru wore gardening gloves and tucked a sharpened hori-hori knife into her sash. "Violence is last resort," the nun said. "But weeds overtaking a garden cannot be reasoned with." They drove through industrial streets, lights from squid fishing boats glittering offshore. Kiji Packing Warehouse loomed like a slumbering whale. A single security light cast cones across loading bays. From a high window, Yuki saw movement, shadows pacing. They circled to a side door chained with a padlock. Sister Amateru produced bolt cutters from a burlap sack. "Temple donations," she murmured, snapping the chain. Inside smelled of sea salt and rust. Crates of tinned mackerel stacked to the ceiling created labyrinthine aisles. Voices echoed near the center. The same 2 thugs, joined by a third man whose tone dripped authority. "At dawn, we torch the bonsai at the fair, claim accidental fire. Historian boy here signs confession of forgery in exchange for life. Everyone happy." A muffled protest. Tatsuo. Yuki crept along an aisle, Sister Amateru flanking the opposite side, knives ready. She spotted Tatsuo tied to a folding chair, lip bloodied yet defiant. The boss, a man in tailored jacket, brandished a fountain pen. "Sign," he demanded. Yuki inhaled, summoning courage to prune away danger itself. She stepped from cover, voice clear. "Let him go. The tree is with the police. You fail." The thugs spun. The boss's smile turned sly. "Mori-san, perhaps the only obstacle I underestimated." She recognized him. Councilman Hirata, chairman of the Heritage Committee. Hirata continued, "If the public learned our beloved fair celebrates a ritual of blood, tourism would wither. That diary threatened my restoration grant. I offered Ishikawa a generous fee to remain silent, but he refused. So, he gestured to the goons, I arranged alternative persuasion. Tatsuo called out, Yuki, the tree, safe? She nodded. Hirata shrugged. No matter. Fire consumes all, even police evidence. But you, Mori-san, must become fertilizer for silence. He drew a compact pistol. Before he aimed, Sister Amateru hurled her hori-hori. The steel blade thudded into the boss's forearm. The gun skittered across concrete. Yuki lunged toward Tatsuo while the thugs rushed the nun. Despite age, she weaved between them, staff-like broomsticks striking shins and wrists with monastic precision. The scarred man grappled her, but Yuki, now behind him, bashed a crate lid onto his head. Tuna tins cascaded, clanging like temple bells. The larger thug fled through a side exit. Sirens wailed outside. Sister Amateru had secretly activated an emergency beacon when cutting the chain. Police burst in, apprehending Hirata and the remaining thug. Tatsuo sagged as Yuki sliced his bonds with pruning shears she'd carried in her pocket since morning. He managed a grin. Knew you'd read the plaque. Yuki hugged him, tears mixing with sawdust on her cheeks. You idiot! You nearly became bonsai mulch. Dawn gilded the horizon by the time statements concluded. Hirata faced charges of kidnapping, assault, and conspiracy to destroy cultural assets. The blood cherry, now under climate-controlled glass at the Prefectural Museum, would undergo DNA and chemical testing. Its unusual physiology, buds responsive to saline acids, promised insights into historical horticulture and the darker edges of feudal loyalty. That afternoon, the Cherry Blossom Fair opened. Crowds drifted beneath fragrant pink canopies, unaware of the drama that had nearly scorched their celebration. At Sanctuary of Small Spirits, Yuki adjusted the moss around a white pine older than her grandmother, accepting compliments with humble bows. Tatsuo, arm in sling, occupied the adjacent stall, displaying a newly rooted cutting he named Second Chances. When judges announced awards, no rivalry simmered, only mutual pride. Later, they walked to the riverbank, where Kanbei's map suggested he buried shame centuries ago. Willow fronds brushed the water. Tatsuo held a scoop of soil, whispering a prayer for Kanbei and every gardener who ever sought redemption through living wood. Then they sprinkled the earth around a sapling cherry Yuki planted there last year, nurturing a future untangled from secrecy. Petals drifted onto their shoulders like gentle verdicts. Some stories, when pruned with care, grow into louder blossoms than any fair could host. In that hushed moment, Yuki realized her craft extended beyond shaping branches. It was about guiding histories toward healthier silhouettes. And as long as bonsai roots found honest soil, no power, ancient or modern, could confine the truth they carried in their rings.